Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Poetry Tea Time with Read Poetry, the latest venture from the publishing team at Danys Publishing. The goal of Poetry Tea Time is getting to know the creators that help make up AMP's best-selling lineup of poets by hosting them in conversation with their editors to talk about things like writing tips, inspiration, and the creative process, and of course, allowing our readers to hear their favorite poets read their work. My name is Danys Mares, and I'm an editorial assistant at Andrews McMeel Publishing. I'm super excited to welcome today's special guest, Kayla McCullough. Kayla is one of the newest additions to the AMP poetry lineup, having joined this past summer. Her first book with us, Glass Hearts and Broken Promises, comes out on October 31st, 2023. Glass Hearts and Broken Promises is a collection of poetry and prose reflecting on heartbreak, self-love, and unfiltered emotions. Divided into two parts, the break and the mend, Kayla gently guides readers through the journey of heartache and reminds them to embrace the love from within. An inspired debut from a talented new voice, Glass Hearts and Broken Promises is the best friend you need when it's time to heal the broken pieces. I'm so excited to jump in and learn more about this beautiful collection. So please welcome Kayla McCullough. Hi, Kayla.
Hi, Danys.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm super excited to chat today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So for those here who may be unfamiliar, can you take a moment to let us know a little bit about yourself and your book and what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, so my name is Kayla, and I am the author of Glass Hearts and Broken Promises, which is a collection of poetry and prose reflecting on the rawness of heartbreak. Like you said, the book is divided into two chapters, the break and the mend, and each chapter is designed to guide the reader through the journey of heartache and remind them that the love that they're searching for ultimately comes from within. When I first began writing the book, it started as just a physical thing that my audience could have that would help them feel less alone when they were at their loneliest. But as I finished writing it and went to publish it, I realized that it became something so much more to myself. It was something that ultimately filled the emptiness in my own heart and soul. And the experiences that are within the book have become my way of connection. So,
I love that. I think that that is rooted in all of the poetry throughout the book. So I think that
yeah,
that's really beautiful and really what makes poetry really important and just writing in general. And I know you mentioned your community online and through your social media. And I love how over the past few years, you've been able to really grow a supportive and engaging community in that space. You've even credited your audience with being the reason you decided to self-publish. Can you talk
yeah,
a little bit about what that journey has been like, building that community and really engaging with the audience and why it's so important to you to continue to maintain that level of openness?
sure. So initially, my page started as an advice page. The videos I would post would be a reflection on questions that I would continually just ask myself. I was going through a really dark part of my life, and the page was a way for me to let go of the things that I initially thought I would never move on from, things that I didn't want to move on from and couldn't let go of. So as I continued to post, I realized that it became just an online version of my actual journal, which helped me condense the thoughts and feelings that I was having in a day. So when I was going through my last heartbreak, I would write down the thoughts and feelings that I was having at like the specific time that I was having them. And I would look back and realize that it was a lot of things. So I went through journal after journal after journal and realized that the online version, the videos that I was posting, helped me heal more than the journals that I was journaling in because it would, like I said, it was a condensed version of my thoughts rather than just page after page after page of the same thing. And when I look back at the journals that I previously had, it brings joy to my myself just because I do realize that I was healing, even though it never looked like I was healing. But eventually my page started to gain traction. And as I read the comments on my videos, I saw that it was becoming other people's beacon of hope. So I continued doing what I was doing, and eventually people started asking me to write a book. Um, the book didn't have to be anything elaborate. It was just something that would encompass all of the thoughts in my videos. It would be something that they could look back on. So since my page started with me being open and honest with myself, I find it's only fitting to continue being open and honest with other people, for the simple fact that it helps them be open and honest with themselves. So,
I love that. That's really beautiful. I
oh,
love the authenticity of it, the how organic that community is.
yeah.
That's really that's tough to do online a lot, and it's tough to be that vulnerable all the time. So kudos to you for creating that space for both you and your followers.
Thank you. When I first started the page, I got a lot of tough criticism from friends and family just asking me if, I was okay or if I'm on the brink of a mental breakdown. But as I continued doing it, I found love and joy, just being able to connect with people on a deeper level. And the comments that I was getting from just people that were close to me really didn't matter as much as the work I was doing on the page. So it outweighed itself, and it's just been something that's brought a lot of light in my life. So
Yeah, and look where it's got you now.
I know.
Published book. That's
It's
great.
crazy how things happen in life.
When you just follow that voice that keeps telling you to keep going, you're doing something good. It's really exciting to see what it can blossom into.
It is. It's very exciting. And honestly, everybody has a story to tell, and your voice deserves to be, heard. So if there's ever anything that somebody is on the verge or questioning themselves that they should do, I would just say, just do it, just because you deserve to be happy. So,
And were you, because I know you mentioned that you were like filling up journals. Were you filling them up with poetry or just kind of working through kind of like a brain dump? I know that that works for a lot of people.
yeah, so it was honestly just a brain dump. It was loaded with just questions I would ask myself. So, for example, my last heartbreak was one of the worst heartbreaks I've ever gone through. And for some reason, I didn't know why, because it was easy for me to like let go and move on before. But somehow this heartbreak really, really stuck with me. So, the journals that I have are just littered with questions of why. Why did this one stick out as much as the other ones? And while I was reading through them again, um, I realized that it was because I broke my own heart within that relationship. And realizing that and accepting that and forgiving myself for that helped me heal and ultimately helped me throw away those journals. So I no longer have, a tie to that
Yeah.
presence. Um, but yeah, no, it was just a lot of raw, unfiltered thoughts, and it was a jumble of mess. So,
Well,
um,
it's better for it to be on the page than constantly in your head.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very true.
What made you decide to change that into poetry? Is that the way that you started sharing online? Did it kind of present itself as poetry, or was that like a conscious decision that you made to kind of change it from this kind of brain dump kind of um, process to very, strategic line breaks in poetry?
Yeah, so I've always loved to write, and I've been writing since I want to say I was in like fourth grade. Nothing of like substance or anything, but it was just a way for me to connect with myself. And I found that when I went to write the book, I didn't want it to just be littered with thoughts and questions that I was answering for myself.
Mhm.
I wanted to tie in that part of myself that loved writing before. So I went through page after page of just a lot of rawness, and I created poems from that. So some of the lines in there are lines that I've wrote or lines that I've created while reading the emotions and feelings that were on that journal.
That's beautiful. I think that that level of or just like organic art like really shows itself throughout the book. So I think you captured that really beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Um, while we're talking about kind of your writing process, do you have, for some of the writers that are joining us today, can you share a little bit insight into like what your general writing process is like from getting a spark of creative inspiration and taking it through to completed work?
Yeah, so I'm going to be really honest. My writing process is very different with every piece that I write or every collection that I write. So, Glass Hearts and Broken Promises started with a title, and not
A
the
great title, by the way.
yeah, thank you. I created the title 4 years before I actually wrote the book, and that just came from a desire of wanting to write a book one day.
Mhm.
Um, so I centered the meat of the book around just fractured fairy tale romances, which came from my desire to want a fairy tale romance and my learning that that's not really a true thing. You can have fairy tale romances in every romance. It could just be like a little thing that happens during the day that could be your fairy tale. But I really wanted to capture just like the realness of a relationship. So that's what the meat of the book is about. The cover came from after writing the poems.
Mhm.
Um, but I would say my inspiration comes in a lot of different waves. So, for example, I woke up, I want to say about, I woke up last week from a dream that I was having. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was just reciting a line of poetry in my mind. So I wrote that in my notes app, and the next day I went back to that line and I wrote a poem centered around it. Um,
Awesome.
so yeah, it's very different. Normally, the first book, Glass Hearts, was this is really embarrassing, but it was written the meat of Glass Hearts and Broken Promises was written at a lot of the time at 11 p.m., 12 p.m., midnight, while I was laying in bed, just typing on my notes app.
Yeah.
So um,
Very
that's
Taylor Swift of you.
thank you.
She would be very proud.
Thank you. But once I created a deadline of when I wanted the first book to be finished by, I made it a job. So I sat down every day and I went through some of my journals and wrote poems centered around just thoughts that I was having. So it could be one poem a day or 5 or 7 poems a day. It doesn't really matter, but yeah.
Nice. I think that a lot of poets especially kind of have that vibe too. It's like whenever it strikes, write it out, but sometimes you do have to like sit at a
Yeah.
desk and like really crank them out.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's something that I love to do. So I let that inspiration come to me.
Mm.
Um, but there is a lot of punctuality that you have to do with writing. So to be in my mind, to want to write or to want to be a good writer, you'd have to sit down every day at around the same time for the same amount of length
Yeah.
and write something. So my creative inspiration comes to me around 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Mhm.
Um, and I normally knock out 5 to 7 poems within that time. And I do that every day just to keep that creativity muscle moving. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I should probably take notes from you.
there's definitely breaks that come. I
Yeah.
think after my first book, I had to take I want to say 2 or 3 months to just kind of rewire my brain into the next piece that I wanted to write. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's important too, to know when it's okay to like step back,
yeah,
just reassess, reset yourself so that you can be creative again.
everyone needs a mini vacation. So,
Absolutely. So speaking of your process, do you have a favorite place that you like to write? Is there some place that like really pulls the poetry out of you?
yeah, so my first book I wrote in my bed. I made it all comfy, and that's how my first book came to me. The second book that I created was created right here. So I made it a really cozy room, honestly. But I added an office chair, which has helped my creativity a lot,
Yeah,
surprisingly. So, yeah, it's just right here in my office.
yeah, love that. And just to get a little bit more into you personally, do you have a favorite poet? Either somebody that you're just really inspired by right now, or like an all-time favorite poet, somebody whose work you kind of go back to every now and then?
Yeah, so I have two favorite poets. I actually just found Lang Liav, and
Oh,
her book, The Gift of Everything, is so beautiful.
the
Um,
books are up here somewhere. Oh, yes, right up there. All
they're
of her.
just amazing. And it really pushed me to want to be on a different level of poetry.
Mhm.
So my second book is me pushing myself to kind of be more poetic or more musical with my words. Um, my all-time favorite poet is Courtney Peppernell.
I
Um,
love Brittany.
she
Yeah. She's
she's
so
my
cute.
inspiration. Yeah, her latest book,
Yeah.
Time Will Tell, is
And
my favorite. It made me cry. So,
oh, she's gonna love to hear that. We love
oh,
Courtney.
good.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned it, so do you want to give us a little bit of detail about book two?
Oh yeah. So my book two, Glass Hearts and Unspoken Goodbyes. I just finished writing that and submitted it to you. And I'm so excited for my readers to have it because it dives deeper into the journey with grief.
Mhm.
Um, and it was something that I didn't think I needed when I finished writing it. I learned a lot about grief and just the journey and beauty of it, the beauty in saying goodbye. And I remember when I was sitting down writing some of the pieces, I would just be sobbing my eyes out, just like writing a poem and then like reciting it back to myself and just working on those lines. But at the end of it, like I said, I learned a lot about myself, about grief, and it's awesome how just different things that you create can do that for you.
Yeah.
Writing, art doesn't really matter. Um, but yeah, Glass Hearts and Unspoken Goodbyes has a beautiful cover. It was something that I really wanted to tie in just happiness, um, centered around, goodbye in itself. So I cannot wait for people to see it. I'm so proud of that work in general. Um, but yeah, it comes out next August 6th.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Next summer.
so yes, it'll look drastically different from the
It will.
first
But it has the same like core feel to it, just kind of like the other side of it.
one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I will say, I too, it took me a little longer to get through it than the last one because I too had to take breaks and just like feel the emotions. You did such a beautiful job. Just really just capturing the like the rawness of grief and like different types of goodbye. And I think a lot of people will find um kind of warmth in it.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited for people to read it. So thank
I'm
you.
so excited. You're welcome. No,
And
I'm
go
excited.
ahead.
I said I'm really excited for people to have it. Like you said, it goes down the journey of grief on a deeper level, and I don't know. I'm just really excited. So
And grief is very complex, and we sometimes we don't realize the different ways that we grieve and how you can think that you're done with it, and months later it hits you again, and
yes,
when you least expect it. And I think people will really see their own experience in that.
I agree, and I'm so excited.
So throughout your career as a writer, has there been a piece of advice that anybody has given you or that you've read and anything that has really inspired you as either a writer or a creative and that you'd like
Yes,
to share? Yeah.
from Stephen King. Read a lot, write a lot. So my latest wave of inspiration, and it doesn't have to be poetry. So if you are a poetry writer, you don't have to read specifically poetry to, create something. My last wave of inspiration came after reading A Court of Mist and Fury by.
Wow.
Um, I love that book. So it gave me a lot of inspiration. So read a lot, write a lot, and or yeah, read a lot of different genres and write what comes to you at that time. Um, but
I love that. I think that's great advice, just in general too.
yeah,
Never stop. There's so much to consume
I
in
know.
the world to be inspired by. Like, don't cut yourself off from the inspiration. I think that that's great.
Mhm.
All right, so before we wrap up today, Kayla, we can't let you go without hearing some of your beautiful work. Can you tell us a little bit about the pieces that you've chosen to read for us today?
Yeah, so one of the poems that I am going to read to you comes from the back of the book. So the Glass Hearts and Broken Promises in general is supposed to reflect on the journey of just heartbreak.
Mhm.
So the beginning of the book is pretty deep, and towards the end it gets really light. Um, so there's a lot of lessons towards the end that I kind of touch on. So this one on page 305 is um, about closure and finding closure and what it means to someone. So this one is finding closure from the broken promises and shattered images from the people who meant the most to you was never about willing yourself not to care about them anymore. It was about finding strength within yourself to let go of the idea of what it could have been. It was about finding a place where you could finally feel safe enough to feel what you really feel without romanticizing the stories that define where you are now. Because after you mourn what you lost, you end up changing your story. Sometimes the closure you didn't get was the closure you needed all along. Sometimes it's better not knowing what could have been. You start moving on the day you realize you cannot continue revolving around what could have been. And I think like the last two or three lines of that always hit home for me because, yeah, it's just, it re-emphasizes just the questions that I was asking myself at the beginning of this whole journey. And finally answering those for myself was world shattering.
Yeah.
And then my second one comes from the beginning of the book, from the break. And it was really hard for me to write this piece because it truly reflected what was going on inside of me, my overthinking and just why I love people so deeply. So this one comes from page 174, and it's, I have a heart that's used to absorbing love from the wrong people. It overlooks flaws and gets taken advantage of. It emphasizes with it empathizes with strangers and trusts too quickly. It hurts itself by not letting go. It breaks from the chances it gives to those who fail to show up and bleeds from the weight of placing love on a pedestal. And when you left it alone, dying in the cold, it was a wonder it was able to stand up again and find forgiveness. It's true. I have a heart that's naive. It loves a little too much, but it's strong. And if it can withstand a love from the wrong place, it was made to survive anything. And I think that last line is just,
It's
I don't
beautiful.
know. Oh, thank you.
Oh, love that one.
That one's hit home with a lot of my audience as well,
Yeah,
just
I
because I don't know.
think we all, a lot of people have, you know, they just want to love, that's what we're
Yeah.
here for, and so getting hurt sucks.
Sorry.
So thank you so, go ahead.
Did you hear like the sirens or anything?
I heard them here. Are they there too?
Yeah, that's weird.
That is weird. Oh, well, thank you so much for chatting with us today, Kayla. This has been so great just to learn more about you, about your journey to where you are today, and about the collection Glass Hearts and Broken Promises, as well as book two, Glass Hearts and Unspoken Goodbyes for next summer. I'm so excited. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with today?
I am very excited to be here and to chat with you, Danys. I think the one thing that I would like to leave with people is that if, like I said, writing, if you want to write, I encourage you guys to do it because I promise you that there is somebody out there who's just dying to hear what you say. Someone whose life can be changed by whatever sentiment you put on paper, whatever light you bring to the world. So
I love that. Thank you. Thank you again, Kayla.
thanks for having me. Bye, Dan.
Bye.